Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. It's summertime, and that means Purdue basketball is back in the gym for summer practices ahead of the upcoming season. On today's episode, we'll talk about summer practices a little bit and look at the two most important players for Purdue for this upcoming season and what summer practice means for the two of them. Plus, basketball's non-conference schedule is finalized, and I have some thoughts on the lunacy that is the Brendan Sorsby situation. If you don't already, be sure follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Plenty to talk about. Come join the conversation. You can always send questions to the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond, or you can email the show boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss a thing, because we're coming to you all year long talking about Purdue sports. You don't want to miss it. Hit subscribe. Summer practice begins, though, and it's obviously a massive summer in West Lafayette because the roster overhaul is really big by Purdue standards. It's not exactly moving out 13 guys and replacing them with 13 new ones. That's something that, you see across the country a decent amount in the transfer portal era. But for Purdue and really for anyone, this is a pretty big roster overhaul where Purdue loses 4 starters. Those were your top 4 scorers. Your top 3 rebounders are gone. The NCAA's all-time assist leader is gone. You're replacing 2 guys who were 4-year starters, another guy who started every game for 3 years. That's replacing a ton. And Purdue's going to have to learn how to play without Brendan Smith, who really controlled everything on offense over the last 2 years. This is a really big summer where Purdue's not necessarily hitting the reset button, but it's going to look a lot different, both personnel-wise, and the style could look a little bit different because of the personnel changes. For every player on the roster, this is a big summer because the opportunities are endless out there. No spots are really accounted for in theory right now. It's not like you have all of these returning starters or a leading scorer coming back. None of that exists, but if you ask me, there are 2 players who, as of now, I look at as the guys who kind of determine the ceiling for Purdue this season, and it's Omer and Daniel Jacobsen. And I'm going to talk about each of them here today and why this is such a big summer for the 2 of them. I'll start with Omer. This is what Purdue brought him in for. To be the heir apparent to Brendan Smith. He was always going to play a little bit as a freshman, both on and off the ball, and then he would slide into that point guard role in year 2, and you've seen absolutely nothing to think that can't work. If you ask me, it's really hard to judge Omer's point guard ability based off of what we saw last season, because he played there so little. He didn't have extended run at point guard. Sure, for 3 or 4 minute spurts, he would go play point guard when Brendan Smith was on the bench, but you're not getting settled in. It's like playing quarterback a little bit. You have to ease into the game. You have to feel what the defense is throwing at you, how they respond to things. When you're playing point guard for 3 minutes at a time, you don't get that. You don't get to settle into a game at all. You can watch from the bench, but that doesn't give you an idea of how it is when you're actually out there. Brendan Smith was your quintessential pass-first point guard, right? He's one of the best ever in NCAA history at doing that, at being a facilitator, a distributor. I don't know that Omer is that type of player. He's a point guard, no doubt, but he's going to look to score more than Brendan Smith did. And to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing. If there was one knock on Brendan Smith at Purdue, it was that at times he didn't look to score all that much. I think back to the Alabama game last year, and when he took that thing over, that was special. When he looked to score, he could really do some things that weren't always the case. Easier said than done, and you can't argue with it because the assist totals are what they are. But having your point guard hunting shots isn't always a bad thing. Omer Meyer's going to look to score the basketball, but that facilitating ability is there. As an international player over in his home country of Israel, you saw him do this well. He did it in ball screen action, and he did it in isolation as well. How much ISO Purdue looks to run remains to be seen. Purdue's not exactly a high ISO usage program, but he's going to get plenty of chances to use ball screens, and he did that well at times last season. He's going to get the chance to use ball screens and take them in freestyle with it, see where it goes. But I think there's so much to like about him as a facilitator, but that comes from him being a scorer. That comes from defenses having to respect him as a scorer. After all, it's basketball. You can't win without scoring. I'm not saying that Purdue can't win without having some type of bona fide leading scorer, but if one emerges, Omer Meyer's probably your best bet right now. If you made me, gun to my head, Jordan, bet money on it, who's going to be Purdue's leading scorer this year, I'm going to take Omer Meyer. That's where my money would lie. Now, you have to develop the right balance of aggressiveness as a scorer and looking to set the table for others. And that's a feel thing. That's not something that happens overnight. It's a game-by-game thing at times. But Purdue has some really nice three-point shooters around him. C.J. Cox, Jakari Harris has been up and down at times, but he has some ability there. Antoine West is supposed to be a really nice shooter. Luke Ertl can shoot the ball. Jack Benter can shoot the ball. Caden Pierce can knock down shots. There are going to be shooters around him, and it's about figuring that out and figuring out the best way to make the offense operate. But I think back to even last season, you saw Omer Meyer get more comfortable throughout the year. I remember sitting here right around the new year looking at stats, and Omer Meyer's number of shots taken for the amount of minutes he had played was pretty staggering. He was putting up a lot of shots, and they weren't going in at an incredibly high clip. But as the season went on, he got more and more selective as a shooter, and that number, his three-point shooting numbers, went up. His two-point shooting numbers, I think, went up. But in Big Ten play last year, Omer Meyer shot 44% from three. That's really good. If he's sitting in the upper 30s this year, you'll sign up for that sight unseen right now. That's great. Now it's the time for him to turn into a legitimate, high-end Big Ten point guard. That's what Purdue brought him in to be. There is no reason to think that it can't happen, but for him, that time is now. It's time to elevate to that. And on the flip side, we go from the point guard to the center with Daniel Jacobsen. A real tricky first year. A tricky first year to judge if you're looking at Daniel Jacobsen, because early on, he did some really nice things. He had that stretch where he had like 25 straight field goal attempts that he made, and it wasn't against great competition, and a lot of them were dunks, but still, he did some good things there. And then as Big Ten play got going, as we got into February and into March, you saw the freshman wall really hit. And that happens to a lot of young guys, especially young big guys, and it hit Daniel Jacobsen hard. At the end of the regular season, the struggles were real. The Big Ten tournament and NCAA tournament, Purdue played 8 games in those two events. In half of those games, in 4 of them, Daniel Jacobsen played 4 or fewer minutes. But on the flip side, he scored in double figures 7 times last year. The last one of those came in early January against Washington. So What do you make of it? It's not the most abnormal thing at all. I remember Zach Edey during his freshman year. He hit a wall hard where he couldn't stay on the floor. He was in foul trouble at an alarming rate. But then it got figured out. In his sophomore year, it got better. And then his junior year, he won National Player of the Year. I'm not comparing the two. Daniel Jacobsen's not going to be Zach Edey. I don't anticipate Daniel Jacobsen winning National Player of the Year. But my point is, there's a lot of growth that takes place. A player grows quite a bit from his freshman year to his sophomore to junior to senior year. And for Daniel Jacobsen, remember, there was a whole year before that where he didn't play. He didn't play any basketball. And last season, his time was inconsistent. Purdue was in win-now mode, so to speak. There was no development for the future that was going on. Purdue was in win-now mode. So now it's his turn to take a step forward. The comparison that gets made a lot for this Purdue team to a past Purdue team is that 2019 group with Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein that launched a boatload of threes. That seems like a pretty apt comparison. But on that team, Matt Harms played a heck of a role as a defender, as a shot blocker, as a rebounder, as a finisher at the rim. If you can get something like that from Daniel Jacobsen this year, that's a big deal. The lob game can be a big difference maker. He's very good at that. He's tall. He can slam it down pretty well. He moves well enough that he can get there off pick and rolls. That's a starting point. Now you have to develop off of that. He should be more comfortable with the basketball in his hands this year. Not his strong suit last year. The ball got stuck sometimes. He should be more comfortable now. Can you add in some basic post moves? You know, he's not going to be Travion Williams or Trey Kaufman-Renn with the finesse of creating angles and getting to the basket, but he's 7'4". He doesn't need to be that. I know you want him to get stronger, but it has to be functional. You don't want him to bulk up just for the point of bulking up. It's got to be functional. He still has to be a functional player, but being stronger, being able to hold ground better, being more durable throughout a game, that's all important for him. And his body isn't built to be Zach Edey, to be Shaquille O'Neal, but can he be a little bit stronger in that role, a little bit more, I don't want to say compact, but a little bit more functional with some strength there. That's big for him. Defensively, I think he has a great ceiling. The deal with him, Purdue being able to stop the ball on the perimeter more effectively this year would really help him out. Because last season at times, Purdue was not a good perimeter defensive team. And when you're in scramble mode, it makes everyone look bad because the guard gets blown by, the big guy has to come out, then the guard who has the ball can pass off of that to a cutter, to an open three-point shooter. When you're in scramble mode, it's a disaster. But if Purdue is a little bit better at staying in front of the basketball this year, if Purdue's a little bit better at preventing guys from getting all the way to the rack, or at least putting up some type of a defense so that they have to get all the way to Daniel Jacobsen where he can block shots, that's great. That's a big deal. This could and this should be a better defensive team than it has been the last few years. And having a player with real upside as a shot blocker, that's important. That's a big part of it, especially as the game gets bigger, especially as the game gets faster. You've got to keep the faith with Daniel Jacobsen, man. I get it. The last year wasn't great, but there's still a lot to like there, and Purdue still needs to invest in him because the easiest path for Purdue to have a really nice year this year is through Daniel Jacobsen being a legitimate Big Ten center who is helping you far more than he's hurting you. As far as some other guys go, look, I'm not going to sit here and list off every player, but For C.J. Jacobsen and Jakari Harris, we've talked about it before. It's all about scalability, right? We've seen them be effective in limited roles. Now the opportunity exists to take on a more expanded role. What does that scalability look like? Are these guys who can be legitimate double-digit, teen scorers for a season, or are they just more of role players? This is a huge opportunity there, and obviously the defensive angle as well. They both have upside as defenders that can help Purdue quite a bit. And then Raleigh Burgess and Antoine West coming in off of red shirts, two very different situations, but how do they fit in? Because both of those guys have to be contributors for Purdue this year. No other way around it. No other way around it. But before we get back to the show, if you're a fan of the podcast, I'm all about having a nice game plan, and your insurance program shouldn't be any different. That's where I come in. I'm Jordan Jones. When I'm not talking Purdue sports, I'm helping people around Indiana get better coverage with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance. Most people are either overpaying or undercovered. Sometimes it's both. I'll take a look at what you've got, walk you through it, and we'll find a plan that actually fits your life, whether it's home, auto, life insurance, business insurance. No pressure, just a quick free quote, some honest advice. We'll talk about Purdue sports. Maybe, hopefully, we can get you to save some money. We can improve your coverages if your policy's up for renewal, or if you just haven't looked in a while, give me a call at 317-846-5861. Or email me, jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com. So the non-conference schedule is done for Purdue basketball here. Released like a week and a half ago. And I think Purdue was the first team in the nation to release its non-conference schedule. The exhibitions, Ball State at Purdue Fort Wayne versus UConn. I think that UConn game's somewhere in the Northeast, but I don't think they've announced where yet. Pretty cool. Purdue going up to Fort Wayne's kind of fun. Obviously, as a Northern Indiana guy, spent a good amount of my life in Fort Wayne with my parents living there for a while. Cool. It's a cool event. Cool for folks in Fort Wayne. Got to like that. Ball State at home. Nice. It's a good deal for Purdue. You get 3 of these exhibition games. The D2 exhibition games are always nice. It's good for the other programs more than it's good for Purdue. You feel good about yourself. It's something to throw on the season ticket package, but actually getting 3 games against Division I opponents is a real positive. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Ball State is particularly good or that Purdue Fort Wayne is particularly formidable, but to get 3 opportunities against real teams before the season starts is awesome. Of course, UConn is a big deal. UConn's a terrific program. Going to be another really good team this year. I'll probably give you a heads up here. Purdue's not going to play that game to win necessarily, so I get your hot takes ready. But no, really nice stuff on the exhibitions. It's a cool deal to open with a marquee event against Gonzaga in Las Vegas. It's been a while since Purdue's had a big opponent in the opener. The last time Purdue lost a season opener, you got to go back to 2012, the Bucknell disaster, the great Bucknell disaster on a Friday night in 2012. But it's a pretty big one. Purdue's had success against Gonzaga. Those were all Zach Edey games. For reference here, Gonzaga's number 9 in the CBS Sports Top 25 and 1. Gary Parrish's rankings over there. So this is a good Gonzaga team. This is a good team Purdue's opening with. In Purdue's bye games, you're looking at respectable opponents here. And this is where Purdue differentiates itself a bit. A lot of programs will only look to the worst teams in Division I to play bye games against. I've seen plenty of the chronicles where these high major programs are specifically looking for teams that are going to be like 250th or worse in the net or 300th or worse in the net. And that's why you see teams like Mississippi Valley State get to play everyone in the country. because they're always like 363 in the net. And a lot of teams want that. Purdue does not. Purdue wants to play bye games against respectable mid-major opponents. And as you look at this, Valparaiso was a decent team in the Missouri Valley last year. I know more about Valpo basketball than any rational non-Valpo alum should, but top 3 players are coming back. Illinois State's a solid program in the Missouri Valley. You have the Ethan Morton connection. He's on staff there. Ohio has had some solid teams in recent memory. Everyone knows the respect that the sport has for Oakland and Greg Campy. I think Lipscomb is a pretty good team. I can't remember if they were a tournament team, but that's a solid program down there in Nashville. And Cal Baptist was an NCAA tournament team that gave Kansas quite a game last year in the first round. So it's a good group of bye games. The Fort Myers event is solid, albeit unspectacular. And this is what I'll say on this year's schedule. I don't know how difficult this schedule actually needs to be. I know there are a lot of folks who want to see Purdue, play a bunch of high-profile marquee games, but Purdue's breaking in a pretty new team, and you have to schedule for the team you have, not the team you want sometimes. Last year, Purdue scheduled a really difficult non-conference schedule on paper. There's nothing Purdue could have done that Auburn turned out to be a dud, that Marquette turned out to be a complete dud. But Purdue had a real gauntlet of a non-conference schedule. Iowa State, Alabama, that Baja Mar tournament with Texas Tech in it, especially before JT Toppin got hurt. Marquette, Auburn, I feel like there was someone else. That's pretty big time there. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, the year Purdue made it to the national title game, the Maui field that year was loaded, and Purdue played a Gavitt game. Don't remember against who. Xavier, maybe? Purdue played Alabama up in Canada. Purdue played Arizona, who was number 1 in the country for the Indy Classic. Like that was big. But those seasons were those all-in years where Purdue was trying to prepare itself for a really deep tournament run, where Purdue had a team that had credible aspirations of competing for a national title on paper in the preseason. That's not really where Purdue is right now. Now, that doesn't mean this team can't be better than expected. That doesn't mean this team can't overachieve, but you're not looking at this as some turnkey, ready-made, big-time contender. You're looking at this as a team that is going to have to grow. And that's normal when you replace everything that you have to replace that we talked about earlier. But you have Gonzaga in the opener. You have Iowa State. You have Tennessee. There are going to be 2 Big Ten games in December. You don't know who yet. Probably not going to be a top-of-the-line contender, but 2 Big Ten games. You have an Indy Classic opponent that's to be announced. It's going to be a power conference opponent. I'm recording this episode a few days early. If you're a member at goldenblack.com, you've seen who it is. If you're not, it's a power conference opponent. That announcement will come at some point if it hasn't already. In the Fort Myers deal, DePaul is an improving program. Now, when Chris Holtman took it over, there was only one way for that place to go, but they had a better year last year. Oklahoma, you're playing an SEC team. Porter Mosier's done some good things as a coach. It hasn't gone great for him there, but it's a respectable enough game. And you look at the Iowa State and Tennessee, both of those teams are ranked above Purdue in the top 25 and 1. It doesn't mean everything, but it means that you're playing 3 really challenging games and then 3 or 4 more really respectable power conference opponents. I think this makes sense. It's not a non-conference that hurts you. It's not loading up on cream puffs and bye games and quad 3, quad 4 results. Nothing on this is going to be worse than quad 2 more than likely. It is what it is. It's not going to jump off the page as one of the strongest schedules in the country, but I don't think it needs to. between this non-conference and 20 Big Ten games, Purdue is going to play plenty of high-quality competition this year. And I just wanted to close here. As I just said, I'm recording this a few days early, so I don't know what has transpired as you're listening to this, but the Brendan Sorsby situation at Texas Tech is a 5-alarm fire for college sports and really sports in general. This is absolutely insane. And there have been so many court cases involving the NCAA lately that, frankly, the NCAA has had no real ground to stand on other than just that's the way it always has been. Think NIL, think the transfer portal, things that make a lot of sense. But the gambling on your own team and gambling on your own sport in general, like you see it in the NFL. Calvin Ridley, Jamison Williams, those guys were gambling on the NFL, and they got suspended accordingly. I think Calvin Ridley bet on his own team. You look at the NBA, the dude who bet him his player props and then faked an injury and left the game. He's banned from the NBA for life. This is a non-negotiable in sports. You can't, if you have an entertainment product, and that's all this is, you can claim it's educational athletics. It's an entertainment product. It's essentially a professional sport played by amateurs to a degree. You cannot have fans thinking that there is any reason to believe that the competition might not be fair and on the up and up, so to speak. If you have fans thinking, oh boy, I wonder if these players are on the take, you have the WWE. You don't have a legitimate sporting competition. Legalized sports gambling had its fair share of unintended consequences to the point where, as just a human and citizen of this country, I think it might have been a mistake in hindsight. But this can't fly. This is existential. This can't be something that gets normalized. And the hard part for the NCAA here is, what did you want him to do? The NCAA deemed him ineligible. Sorsby sued, got a favorable judge in Texas to rule in his favor. This is, if you want to know why the NCAA is asking for help from Congress so bad, it's this. And Tom Fornelli had a great piece on CBS Sports about it. The NCAA needs protection from courts to a degree, not for things like NIL, but for things like this. For things like these eligibility cases, like Trinidad Chambliss getting an extra year. Different deal, nowhere near as powerful, but the NCAA has to be able to enforce some rules. And this is the most obvious rule in the world, and this is really, really damaging for college sports. Texas Tech has made a fool of itself here. It has lost the respect of virtually everybody. I don't know that I've seen one individual not associated with Texas Tech supporting this. And it will be very interesting to see how all of this plays out, because this truly is everybody against Texas Tech. Like, it's like in South Park when it's Cartman versus everybody on any sort of an argument. This is Texas Tech versus everybody. And you just have to wonder if this is actually going to take place. Is he actually going to go out there in week 3 and suit up? Because this is just such a big deal, such a potentially massive moment where if you give the green light to this, there's no telling what's next. And it might not be Brendan Sorsby, someone of that level who's playing at the power conference level and is making money at a pretty decent clip, but you've seen it in college basketball. These low major, mid-major guys who were point shaving. I know Eastern Michigan was involved. There were a handful of schools involved. Yeah, these guys aren't making a lot of money. Like, you have to be able to rule with an iron fist on this, and for it to not is just really disappointing and a really sad deal for college sports here. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Thank you for spending time with me. Any news that we find through summer practice will be here. But as we inch closer to football season, I am fired up to shift the conversation to football as well. We'll be back here next week. I don't know what we'll talk about yet, but I know we'll find something. Until then, be sure to follow the show on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Send me your questions, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com, or on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next week, guys, take care.